Good afternoon. Corey Rosenlee, President of the Hawaii State Teachers Association. HSTA strongly opposes SB 856 because it does not deal with the real question that we need to solve. How do we properly fund Hawaii schools? If you want to look at that problem, first, if you compare us with mainland schools of similar size and student populations, they on average spend $6,000 more per pupil than Hawaii's public schools do. And if you look in Hawaii schools, and the only thing we have a comparison in Hawaii schools is our private schools. The major private schools in Hawaii spend about $30,000 per pupil. For our public schools is about $14,000. But for our public schools, we take all comers. Over half of our students, half, are now Title I in our public schools. 11% are special education. 10% are ELL. When you look at just what a regular education student costs in Hawaii, that cost is about $10,000 to $11,000. So we only spend about a third of the amount as a private school does in Hawaii to educate a child. And no one is suggesting that we audit Punahou or that spending $30,000 per student at Punahou is wasteful. We only do that for our public school students. And that's the real problem of this bill. Instead of getting to the real issue of how do we fund our schools, what we do instead is we don't try to look at the funding gap. And the funding gap is the difference between what we're spending and what we should be spending. Right now, we've created a real problem between the haves and have-nots. And how do we ensure that every child, regardless of where they live, what their ethnicity is, how much the money their parents make, that all children have access to opportunity and to a quality education. The United States is one of only 3 countries in the world that actually spends more money on rich children than on poor children. And so every time we try to close that funding gap, roadblocks are thrown in our way. Things such as financial audits. We've seen right now across the country, teachers, in order to try to make sure that we properly close that funding gap, have had to go on strike across the entire country. Just this week, Betsy DeVos said that large class sizes are a good thing. So every single time we try to close this funding gap, roadblocks are thrown away, such as an audit, to make sure that we do not properly give all of our children a quality education. So let's look at the DOE budget. Is this truly wasteful? The largest part of the DOE budget is EDN 100, school-based budgeting. 58% of the budget. The vast majority of that is for weighted student formula, directly to the schools, and the vast majority of that is to fund salaries. Not just of teachers, but our EAs, our custodians, our principals. Our educational assistants right now are earning $14 an hour. They are living in poverty. Our teachers, they're leaving. In the last 6 years, we've seen teachers leaving by 70% moving to the mainland because they're paying our teachers better. That has caused a gap of over 1,000 positions in our schools that are not filled right now. So when we look at the waste, there is not waste in EDN 100. Next largest part of the budget, EDN 150, 23% of the budget, special education. I've had several prominent attorneys tell me in this state that Hawaii is breaking the law when it comes to special education. Because right now we have over 500 positions that we cannot fill in special education. And if we go back to 2009, when we had a better ratio of SPED teachers to students, it's actually closer to 700 positions that we are not filled. So 81% of the budget right there, okay? We do not have that waste. 12% is for school support. That is primarily utilities, transportation. That leaves these 6%. That is for EDN 200 and 300. Now I'm going to give a statistic that most people do not believe. And this is what creates a problem with starts a bill like the audit. Hawaii ranks 48th in the nation in state administrative costs. We are actually one of the most efficient school systems in the entire country. And that's why we don't need things like this audit. So instead of spending millions of dollars counting pencils, we could use that money to actually fund things that matter. Before you are things such as making sure that SPED teachers don't have to buy supplies or their own pockets to make sure that we have differentiated reading. Bills to make sure that we have housing vouchers so that we can make sure that we staff hard-to-staff schools. That's how we should spend our money instead of funding things such as an audit. Thank you.
DOE audit. This will be deferred till next week, Wednesday, April 3rd. For us to do a comprehensive financial and management audit, we don't know how effective it will be. And the other thing is we don't know if the auditor has the capacity to do a financial and management audit of the entire DOE in a rolling basis. What we should be looking at is we should be looking at certain areas that can be audited. So I will be talking to the subject matter chairs and some of the committee members of doing audit of a certain section as opposed to the entire DOE. So decision making on this will be next week, Wednesday, end of agenda.